Samus is back, bitches! After like 398 years, Nintendo has finally released a new, proper Metroid game. I say proper because calling Federation Force a Metroid game is like calling being a YouTuber a viable career choice. Heyo! So what is Metroid Samus Returns? Well, it's another Metroid 2 remake. Well, not that another Metroid 2 remake, but it is an official 3DS remake of Metroid 2 The Return of Samus, originally for the Game Boy that came out in 1991. A game that I love and find to be grossly underrated, but a pretty outdated game all the same. I'll save you some time. If you're here just to know if you should get this game, yes, you should absolutely get this game. But if you still need some convincing, hang on tight, spider-ball yourself to your seat if you need to, because I'm gonna tell you why Samus Returns will, in a manner of speaking, make you crap yourself with joy. Not literally, though. I wouldn't tell you to play it if it required wearing a diaper. Who am I kidding? I'd still play it. This review is going to be spoiler-free. Not that Metroid games have a ton of plot to spoil, but there are plenty of kick-ass surprises that I would have hated to have spoiled for me before I played the game. I'll also try to explain things in such a way that people new to the Metroid series will understand the appeal of this game. Honestly, if you're a Metroid veteran, you probably already own this game. I know I'm super late with this review, but for those of you still on the fence about getting it, grind those fence posts into your ass crack and keep watching! Since day one in 1986, when the first Metroid game came out for the NES, Metroid has always been about a certain few key gameplay elements. You play as Samus Aran, 6'3" Amazonian ass kicker as you explore hostile alien worlds. Metroid games tend to be very isolating and atmospheric, with little dialogue or text, allowing the player to infer the story elements just based on their own observations. In Metroid games, you generally find lots of power-ups and useful upgrades along your way that slowly transform you from like a worse Mega Man into a walking arsenal of pure destruction. However, these new abilities also often interact with your environment, allowing Samus access to areas that were previously off-limits. And that leads me to my last key point about Metroid. These games are usually non-linear. You'll find yourself backtracking through an area to get somewhere new or just to collect power-ups that you may have missed the first time through. All these things come together to create a gaming experience unique unto itself, one that immerses the player in an isolating journey full of peril and wonder, where your imagination tells you more about the world around you than a text box ever could. It's a game about getting stronger. A power-up doesn't just do more damage, it changes the gameplay in a way that you can feel. So yeah, Samus is a badass. Alien planets, isolation, atmosphere, power-ups, exploration. If this sounds like some shit you want out of a video game, you might be the Metroid series' newest fan. Oh, and if you don't know why these games are called Metroid, it's because the plot generally revolves around these life-sucking alien parasite critters called Metroids. And this is not Metroid. That's Samus. And she's a lady, not a robot. You'd be surprised how much confusion there is about this. So with that out of the way, let's talk about Samus Returns. Your mission? Eradicate the life-sucking Metroids on their homeworld, SR-388. Yes, this game is about committing genocide. The first thing you'll notice about this game is how damn good it looks. Despite being on the tiny 3DS screen, the environments, characters, and backgrounds all have an amazing level of detail. I wish the footage I'm showing you now did it any justice, but blowing a tiny screen up to 1080p tends to look pretty crusty. One thing I'd like to emphasize is how awesome the 3D feature looks in this game. I know most people don't even use the 3D on their 3DS, but I strongly encourage you to give it a try with this game, even at the minimum setting, especially if you have a new 3DS. That's what I played it on, and the 3D looked incredible the entire time. It gives the background so much depth and makes the game look 10 times better. Anyway, the graphics make Planet SR-388 look so inviting. It really makes you want to explore every crevice and see what's around every turn. The combat starts out pretty simple at first. You can jump, shoot, crouch, you've got some missiles, and for the first time ever in a side-scrolling Metroid game, you have the ability to free aim and shoot in a full 360-degree range, which adds a lot of realism to the way you approach enemies. This was a welcome addition, and I found myself free aiming 90% of the time as opposed to trying to pull off jump shots. The other major addition to the classic Metroid combat is the ability to parry enemies with a melee counterattack. A majority of the game's enemies actively try to pounce on your ass rather than just being mindless obstacles like in most platforms. With the right timing, you can deflect an enemy's attack, stun them, and then fire back with a powerful counterattack that usually kills them instantly. It's very satisfying to pull off, especially against bosses. Samus's motions during these little sequences are so fluid, with her able to counterattack in any direction no matter where the enemy got smacked to by your counter. However, I did feel like it was a bit forced at times. I think I would have preferred it if less enemies charged at you, because you find yourself melee countering just about everything. Still, you don't have to use it in every situation that presents itself. It's still perfectly viable to blast enemies from afar, get the drop on them before they come charging at you, or just juke them all together. A really cool little detail I noticed is that you can shoot an enemy that's moving away from you to get its attention, and it'll actually turn around and charge at you. Like, hey, come here so I can kill you. Regardless, the melee counter was a cool addition, and the pro pros of it definitely outweighed the cons. As I said earlier, this game is about eradicating every last Metroid on planet SR388, a process which is facilitated by a proximity radar on the bottom screen that starts to blink faster and faster as you get closer to your prey. Along your journey, you'll come across these large shrines with anywhere from 1 to 10 purple gems on it. These shrines are usually surrounded by some purple drink that Samus can't survive in for more than a few seconds. The goal is to exterminate enough Metroids in the area to activate the shrine, which causes the acid to recede, allowing you to further penetrate the planet. As you'd expect, the deeper you go, the more powerful the Metroids become. I won't show you past their second stage of evolution, but they get pretty terrifying down the road. Where the Metroid radar really shines is during these encounters with these asshole Metroids that like to burrow through the wall and run off to another room, so rather than just randomly guessing where it ran off to, you can play a little game of hot and cold by paying attention to your little beeping radar. Samus Returns is very cinematic for a side-scrolling game. Just about every new object or important enemy gets some kind of short cinematic intro where Samus silently observes the situation rather than the game throwing a text box at you all like, "Hey, here's what this thing does," and totally spoiling the discovery aspect of the game. Samus doesn't know what any of this shit is, so neither do you until you figure it out on your own. I know some people can't stand breaks in the action of a game like this, myself included depending on the game, but I feel like this moment of silent observation is appropriate for a game like Metroid that functions on the principles of immersion and world building. Metroid is a game of show, don't tell. Discovering things on your own is half the fun. Speaking of cinematics, they're not all moments of quiet observation. Oh no. Melee countering a boss cuts to a dope-ass interactive cutscene that allows you a few seconds to have your way with your enemy, all the while reinforcing Samus' status as a pure badass. What I love so much about these sequences is that you're still in control of your attacks. The game doesn't just auto-attack for you like some quick-time event. You still have to press the fire button, and you can even switch between weapons during this cinematic depending on the situation. I had loads of fun during these Metroid boss encounters. They were all about learning your enemy's movement cues and responding appropriately. You might get your ass handed to you on your first attempts, but once you master the battle, it feels good to just annihilate a Metroid without breaking a sweat. Another great aspect of the Metroid battles, and really all the boss battles, is that there are multiple ways to dispatch your enemies. Different weapons have different effects on them, each with their own pros and cons, allowing you to fight using your own style and making you feel very in control of the situation. There are a few pretty epic boss fights in this game against some non-Metroid enemies, but this is a spoiler-free zone, so I won't show you any of that. However, my only problem with these epic encounters was that there were so few of them. These fights were so spectacular that I was just left wanting more, so I guess that means the game was doing something right. If a gripe with a game is that the game is so fun that you want more game, is it really a gripe? As with any self-respecting Metroid game, Samus Returns has a slew of exciting and fun power-ups that expand Samus's arsenal, making her an outright killing machine by the end of your mission. Metroid veterans will see a lot of familiar favorites show up, but if you're new to the series, each upgrade is going to feel like Christmas. Or Hanukkah, if that's your thing. Actually, it's more like Hanukkah because you get one present at a time. I've always loved the thrill of going through those red doors in Metroid games, knowing on the other side there would be a statue of a bird dude holding a new present for you, all wrapped up nicely and everything. Seriously, that small moment of wonder before you shoot the orb and reveal what the item is still one of my favorite touches in the Metroid series. Anyway, getting new abilities almost always makes a difference in how the game plays out immediately. You can turn into a ball and explore tight spaces. You jump higher, your shots go through walls, you can stick to any surface. The list goes on. There were a few powers that felt like their usefulness was overshadowed by something better in too short of a time frame, but for the most part, getting a new upgrade always opens a whole new world of discovery for Samus. Like I said, the power-ups in the game are ones we've already seen in the Metroid series, with the exception of the brand new Aeon abilities. These powers consume a new resource called Aeon when used, and give Samus even more options when it comes to exploration and combat. I had a ton of fun experimenting with them and using them in different ways to tackle this hostile world. However, the very first Aeon power you get, the Scan Pulse, is my single biggest problem with this game, and this is honestly just personal preference. I know people are pretty divided on this. So, in the first 15 minutes of the game, you're given this power called the Scan Pulse, which consumes a small amount of your Aeon to reveal a huge portion of the map around you, including the hidden secrets, as well as showing you what blocks in the room you're in are breakable. As a Metroid veteran, I've always enjoyed the thrill of uncovering a hidden secret with nothing but my wits. It made the reward that much more satisfying. And while the Scan Pulse does give you information that other Metroid games give you through other means, like the map stations and the X-ray scope in Super Metroid, I think it comes too early in the game and reveals a little too much all at once. If I were to change the Scan Pulse, I would have it reveal a smaller portion of the map and not reveal the location of secrets on the map. What I did find myself using the Scan Pulse for mostly was to double check that I wasn't missing a breakable block in a room that I would have spent 5 minutes neurotically bombing in any other Metroid game like a lunatic, only to find jack shit. Honestly though, I can see new players really enjoying the Scan Pulse. It makes the game way more accessible to a wider audience, and honestly, some of the hidden breakable block locations locations in this game are incredibly arbitrary with no visual cues, so the scan pulse completely remedies that. I can't talk about a Metroid game without briefly mentioning music. The tracks used in Metroid games are a huge part of the immersion factor. It's used to set the tone for whatever area you're exploring, be it upbeat and colorful, eerie and haunting, or ominous and foreboding. Samus Returns uses a nice mix of songs from the original Metroid 2, songs from other Metroid games, and some brand new ones on top of that. I felt that for the most part, it was right on the money. There was the occasional instance where the tone of the game shifted too quickly because of a jarring musical change, but as usual, the music in Samus Returns delivers spectacularly. I absolutely recommend you play this game with headphones to get the full eargasmic effect. As with any Metroid game, Samus reaches an incredible level of power by the end. You're able to perform so many feats of badassery and dispose of enemies with any number of your highly destructive abilities. However, the 3DS tends to be a little more limited than other consoles in terms of how many buttons there are to utilize for a complex combat system, so the touchscreen is used to toggle between numerous powers on the fly rather than having to open a menu and select an ability. Getting the hang of this can be a challenge, and the 3DS is not the most ergonomic of controllers, so the occasional hand cramp might befall you. That being said, once I mastered the controls of a full power Samus, I felt unstoppable. You can really pull off some sweet moves if you're on top of your game. One nitpick I have with the controls is that you can't use the D-pad for movement at all, as your Aeon powers are mapped to it, and I gotta say, platforming with an analog stick is certainly not ideal. The circle pad made total sense for the free aim, and I loved using it for that, but having to press down twice to go into Morph Ball on an analog stick rather than just tapping it twice on a D-pad is a pain in the ass. You can quickly go into Morph Ball by touching the map on the touchscreen, but then your thumb has to backpack across the entire continent of your 3DS, which is annoying. That being said, I actually got good at it, and honestly, it's better than not having a quick morph at all. Also, the controls aren't customizable, so if you're not used to shoot being the leftmost button and jump being the bottommost button, aka the correct layout, it's gonna take some time for you to adjust. Why they didn't make the controls customizable in this day and age is beyond me. How hard could that possibly be? Anyway, these are all minor gripes. I love the shit out of this game. It embodies everything a 2D Metroid should and adds tons of modern flair and polish that makes the experience one of pure enjoyment. If you're new to the series, Samus Returns is as good a place to start as any. Metroid isn't Nintendo's most popular franchise, although in my opinion, it's their best one, and Metroid's gameplay style isn't gonna be for everyone, but Samus Returns felt like a very accessible game to me, and I think most people out there would enjoy it quite a bit. Seriously, if you've got a 3DS and you like good games, go get yourself this bad boy. Oh, I should give it a score or whatever, because this is a review after all. 9 billion out of 9,999,999,999. You do the math. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I know it's super late in respect to when this game came out, but I just suck at getting things done on time. So for anybody that was like on the fence about Samus Returns, this is really more for those people. I think everybody who's gonna get a Metroid game got it already. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up button, leave a comment. That's how I know I should keep doing what I'm doing, and if not, then I won't do this again, I guess. Also, if you want to see more content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button or I'll kill you. Also, hey, you should follow me on Twitter. I always forget to like tell people to do that. It's just at Dookieshed, and you can follow me there. I post lots of dank memes and like polls for you to vote on for like videos I should make, and I ask Q&A, and I get drunk and yell at all caps at people, so it's a good time. I would recommend following me on Twitter if I were me. As always, I'd like to give a huge shout out to all my awesome supporters on Patreon, especially Hirod Tuo, Totter, the NM22, Jeffrey, Jared Forrest, Stooge, ZX Crimson, Mero Ochi, and P-Funk.